Everyone for joining. And I would love to introduce our guest speaker, Jaden H.C. Sampson, pronouns he and him, has been a criminal justice instructor at Montgomery County Community College for 20 years, and he is the coordinator for both the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Administration programs. He identifies as an African-American trans man who has been a planner for the Philadelphia Trans Wellness Conference, PWC, Trans Health Conference for 20 years. Prior to his transition, he made a commitment to service when he was in college after pledging Delta Sigma Theta. Upon transitioning, he kept that promise of service, and not only is he a volunteer planner for PTWC, but he also does volunteer work at his college and as a member of Norristown Friends, Quaker. When not doing service, he loves to learn, camp, exercise, and train for triathlons. He is currently taking science courses at his college because he's interested in doing research on the connection between nutrition and criminal behavior. Of note was his 50th birthday celebration in 2017. In an 80-day, 4,300-mile sojourn, he rode his bicycle across the country, bringing awareness to food addiction. His current favorite quote, "He that will not reason is a bigot. He that cannot reason is a fool. And he that dares not reason is a slave," by William Drummond. Thank you so much again, Professor, for joining us today. And whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Great. So I've been sharing my screen so far. One of the things we'll be talking about is all the various careers in policing, and there are a lot. And you'll note that the caption at the bottom here of my first slide says the future of policing change from within. And it is imperative that we understand that policing will need to change, but it must have pressure from outside and within. And what that means is that we need significantly more diversity in the area of policing. People have to be brave enough as women, people of color, LGBT, whatever somewhat marginalized community, to understand that we need to change from within. And that means having leadership develop from within, and that means having people with leadership ability come in and markedly have an impact on policing. So by the end of this 30-minute presentation, we will have a complete overview of all of the possible careers in policing, including some types of tangential supportive careers like probation and parole, for example, or even in the area of corrections. So as Bridget indicated, my pronouns are he and him. I've been a professor at Rockland for 20 years. We're going to move on to the good stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about is all the careers in policing at the federal level. And the U.S. Department of Justice is the legal arm of the federal government. They, of course, maintain several separate divisions that are responsible for enforcing federal laws and protecting U.S. citizens. So most of you have heard of FBI. You may have heard of ATF. And the oldest branch is actually the U.S. Marshals. So what I wanted, and then we have the Department of Homeland Security, with which many of you are probably familiar with, given how you would have come into the country, many of you, based on what I've learned about your particular path. So this is the department that you may be very familiar with. They deal with three areas. They obviously prevent terrorist attacks within the United States. They reduce the Americans' vulnerability to terrorism and minimize the damage and aiding recovery from attacks that occur. So Customs and Border Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the Secret Service. So what I wanted to do is give you kind of a quick overview of the educational requirements for CPB, which is Customs and Border Patrol, Secret Service, and FBI. Not all of them, but just to give you a sense of some of the requirements for some of the federal jobs. Switch to presentation. Okay, so for Customs and Border Protection, what they do is they work with the courts, and if you've been reading the news, they've been in the news a lot, especially on the border out west. But they work with canine units, they capture terrorists to try to enter the country. And what we're looking at is this, what I want to focus here on is what we need. So then the requirements are physicals, the background check and drug screens. You have to be under 40, and you have to have resided in the US for at least 3 of the last 5 years. They prefer a bachelor's, so you really do need a bachelor's there, especially in a degree in criminal justice. However, a suitable amount of previous work may also be acceptable, but for a lot of you, this is going to be the thing to focus on if you have to be here for 3 to 5. The job listings indicated the minimum salary for CBP officers are $34,900, although this will obviously increase with location and experience. The Secret Service. I have a dear friend who just retired from being a Secret Service agent. They deal with protecting the president. They handle financial crimes and counterfeiting. And you need to be a legal citizen, have a driver's license between the ages of 20 and 37. You have to have a corrected vision of 2200 or better, or corrected 20/20 as well as hearing loss not exceeding 30 decibels. So you're going to be drug tested. You have to admit if you had a history of taking drugs, you have to pass the physical and health screening. And the minimum education is a high school diploma. That is the minimum for that. Although higher levels of education may be preferred. One of the things I'm going to emphasize to you is that you definitely want to have at least a bachelor's, because that's going to help you be able to move up in terms of leadership positions. So all Secret Service agents must be able to obtain top secret security clearance, and the minimum payment is $49.16. I think that's the thing that I'm going to here. Yes, DHS. All right. All right. What I wanted to point out here was the number of jobs within the Department of Homeland Security that are police oriented, but they also may be able to capitalize on skills that you folks had brought with you coming into the United States. If you have experience in cybersecurity, Department of Homeland Security is hiring. Information technology, intelligence, obviously law enforcement, which is our focus. Business ops, some of you might have experience coming from home countries in any of these areas. Travel security, which would be TSA, prevention and response, and emergency management. So I wanted to hyperlink to this website just to show you that Department of Homeland Security is quite expansive in what they're looking at. And some of you, having come from home countries, might have some experience in any of these areas. And if you fit all the other requirements, it might be a good fit. Okay. Now the other areas I want to focus on, again, I'm just giving you some examples of some of the careers in policing at the federal level, and I'm just highlighting a couple just to give you a sense about the requirements. So we're going to go and look at the FBI. And what's interesting about the FBI is they have specific programs for veterans, but I want to look at this with students. There's some specific things that they have with students. So high school students, undergrad, a lot of you have already come in with an undergraduate education. And I wanted to point out this internship program that the FBI has. So it's a 10-week paid internship for undergraduate and graduate students. So again, some of you have an advanced degree, work alongside with the FBI and gaining advantage. You are full-time. If you have a bachelor's degree and you're enrolled in a full-time graduate program, you receive what's called GS5 pay. They have all these different levels of pay. All other full-time students, including dual enrollment students, that is, if you are a high school student who's also enrolled in a college program at the same time, which we have at Montgomery County Community College. So that means that a high school student could be taking college courses while they're in high school, and then when they graduate from high school, they have some college credit already, and it's a lot less expensive to do it that way. So here you receive GS4 pay, including undergraduate students enrolled in graduate courses. So The FBI will soon be hiring for hundreds of new positions in high-tech Huntsville, Alabama. A new FBI campus is under construction at the Redstone Arsenal. So I wanted to show you this so you could see that there are ways to get involved with the FBI, for example, through an internship opportunity. All right. The next thing I wanted to show you was, so with the FBI, you have to be at least 23. You have to have a minimum of, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree. And that could be, and then criminal justice law enforcement experience. And then any area of study, a specialist that FBI wants. So for example, let's say you decided you're in this country for the first time, you have a certain background that's not really related directly to some of these areas, but you've got some background in computers. Then you might want to go to either CCP, which is Philadelphia's community college, or my community college, Montgomery County Community College, and get your associates in software or cybersecurity. This, then at least you would have your associates paired with your bachelor's and master's from your home country, may be enough for the CIA to take a look at you. But you at least have a bachelor's and have to be 20. That's for the FBI, sorry. CIA. So, sorry. That's not the intention. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Link to the CIA website. Okay, so with the CIA, they also have a student program. I want to specifically point out how they hire so that you have a sense about the process. So here are the minimum requirements. You're physically in the United States or in the territory. You're a U.S. citizen. Dual U.S. citizenship is eligible, so that should be an issue. You have to be at least 18 and willing to move to Washington, D.C. The area, because DC is difficult with the housing there. Desperately looking for more housing in DC. So here, you have to apply online, you have to be 18 to the DC area. And you must complete the security and medical evaluations. They have an extensive evaluation process here. So if you have any of these, you're probably not going to get in. So, and you want to be clear about what you're doing on social media. So I wanted to give you a sense there. I'm sorry that my link didn't work well. Okay. Now we're going to move on to another possibility, which is having a career in policing at the state, county, or metro level. So at the state level, for example, if you're in Pennsylvania, you will be talking about working for the state police. At the county level, you will be talking about working for any of the county police agencies. Like I'm in Montgomery County, you may be in Philadelphia County, there's also Allegheny County. So Pennsylvania is a large state, so just to give you a sense of the largest counties you have, Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is located, and they have, of course, their own police force, and that's the home of the Steelers, for those of you who are sports people. And then you have Philadelphia County, which is home of the Phillies and the Eagles. And the Philadelphia County has their own police force. And then you have all the other counties in Pennsylvania, and many of them have their own police forces. Some of them use only the state police. Then you have the metropolitan law enforcement agencies, which include the large cities like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, the LAPD, which we've heard about, you may have heard about in the news. Certainly, because some of you are new to the United States, you may not have heard, but the LAPD, the New York, Chicago, so any large city has a metropolitan police force. So now I'm going to briefly speak with you about how do we get involved with the state police, the county, or the metro. So for the PA State Police, you have to complete, have to be at least 21, because you actually cannot hold a gun in the state of Pennsylvania as a police officer unless you're at least 21. You then have to have a minimum of 60 credits in any area of study. It could be psychology, it could be business. It does not have to be CJ, criminal justice. And you can get those 60 credits at a community college, very inexpensive. So if you're in Philadelphia County, you would get what's called in-county tuition for CCP, which is the Philadelphia Community, the Community College of Philadelphia. And then, or you come to Montgomery County, and if you live in Montgomery County, you get a discount for being a Montgomery County resident. So ideally, you need an associate's degree or higher for the state police. They do their own training. And what education requirements can be waived for veterans with 4 years of active military duty. I always strongly support students getting their associate's degree. Right after they get their associate's degree, get involved in the state police, but then they really want to focus on getting their bachelor's, because that's going to open up opportunities for more leadership positions when you seek to move up rank. So if you decide that you're not interested in the state police, but you want to look at the municipal level, then you're talking about the counties in Pennsylvania, and there's lots of counties. It's like Homeland County, Montgomery County, Bucks County, Allegheny County is huge, and that would be a metro police force, but we have hundreds of counties. Bedford County in Pennsylvania. So here you have to do what's called Act 120, and that means you need to go to either the Montgomery County Police Academy. If you're going to go work for the Philadelphia Police Department, you should go to the Philadelphia PD. You don't have to. But if you're going to work for a county, you have to have what's called Act 120. And that means you must go to one of the academies in order to get your Act 120. Now, you have to be at least 21, and there are many educational pathways. So you can get your associate's degree at the police academy. Associate's degree at the Police Academy, work and get your bachelor's. So I'm sorry, I just realized this is a typo, pardon me. So here's how it works. If you come to Montgomery County Community College and you get your associates, you could decide before you do that to go to the academy. If you go to the Montgomery County Police Academy, you will get 15 credits towards your associate's degree. So it makes sense to go to the academy first. You're still going to pay because you have to pay to go to the academy, and then you'll get 15 credits towards your associates. So then you could also, then after that, you want to really get your bachelor's. But the path would be, if you already have your bachelor's, then you're just going to go right into the academy. And some of you coming from another country may have a bachelor's that will be recognized in the United States. Sometimes that's not always easy to do, and I'm just going to be transparent with you because I know that can be very frustrating. So the quicker route may be to get your associates at one of the community colleges, because that's going to be less expensive. And then once you get your associates, you can then go to the police academy. But again, you want to check if the community college gives credit for the academy. I know we do at Montco, and I'm not sure about CCP. Okay, so here you'll see that 17 classes at the police academy that should be at the police academy transfer back. You get 12 credits towards your associates. So that's a pretty nice deal. So that's what you would need to do in order to be ready to apply to be a police officer generally in all the counties. Now, another route is sometimes the police departments will support you get in Act 120. So in other words, some of the academies police departments in the counties throughout Pennsylvania say, we don't need the Act 120 right away, apply, and if we accept you as a probationary police officer, we will pay for you to go to the academy to get your Act 120 license. And then you now have completed that, and now you start your probationary training, continue your probationary training with the municipality. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, as I said, the other path is to work with a large police department in a metropolitan area. And just to give you a list, these are the largest police departments. Screen sharing is done. Okay, I don't know why it's done. Okay. So these are the largest police departments in the United States. And I just wanted, again, this is some of you, because you're not from the United States, you might not know these, although everybody probably knows about the NYPD. So the NYPD, then you have Chicago and Los Angeles, and then you have Philadelphia. So I just wanted to give you that quick list of the largest police departments. Here's a whole list of the largest police departments. So New York is the number one, followed by Chicago, and then Los Angeles, and Philadelphia is fourth. And then Houston, Washington, D.C., Dallas, if you're looking for warmer weather, you could go down south. You also have Baltimore, Nassau County, and New York, and then you have San Francisco, Detroit, Milwaukee. So the numbers get smaller and smaller, of course. But I just wanted to give you a sense of that, because based on what I was informed at the beginning, some of you just not being from here wouldn't know what those departments were. Slides. Oh, I wrote to my slides. I think I closed them out. What's that? Second, stop sharing. Just find the slides. Not sure what happened. Okay. 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 So I also wanted to show you what the educational requirements are for the Philadelphia Police Department. Okay. And fireworks are already starting to happen. I'm sorry, you heard that. So you have to be a bona fide resident of the city of Philadelphia for 1 year prior to the appointment. And this is a civil service position, so you have to take the civil service exam. So you have to maintain bona fide residence in Philadelphia for at least 1 year prior to the date of the civil service examination. It'll have priority over all persons receiving the identical test score. So if you haven't had a bona fide Philadelphia residence for at least 1 year prior to the date of the civil service, and you take it and you get the same score someone has, they're going to have priority over you. So you have to have at least a high school diploma. I really strongly suggest that you get at least an associate's and then continue your education to your bachelor's. You have to be 22 on the date of the appointment. And then there are various physical exams, reading ability that you have to master. You also have to do a reading and comprehension test for Act 120 for the counties as well. So you have to pass a number of exams, including a polygraph, an extensive background. You have to be willing to work rotating shifts. So you're not going to be, have a schedule that's the same week after week. Unlike at the county level, where you probably would have a schedule that's pretty much the same, but when you get to the bigger metropolitan police departments, that changes. Any questions so far? Are you guys seeing my slides now?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay, good.
And I do have plenty of questions for you, probably towards the end, though.
Okay, great. Cool birds. All right, so the last area of policing that some of you may be familiar with, depending on the political circumstances of the country in which you're coming from, is private policing. This isn't the last area, there's another area. Private policing is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Some of you may already have some experience in policing in the country that you're coming from. And this may be a more attractive option for private policing. So it's huge. And the reasons for private policing absolutely exploded, not only in the United States, but in the UK and other parts of the world. It's a non-governmental provision. It's the growth of mass private property. Of course, we can have an entire debate about the pros and cons of capitalism and private property, but at this point, this is where we're at. And as a result, there's a belief that government police are not capable of providing the level of service and presence that the public desires when it comes to protecting private property and businesses. So when you look at the difference between public policing and private policing, in private policing, the point is profit and it's client driven. You know, some of these companies are publicly traded companies, right? So the public policing's primary focus is the enforcement of criminal law. But private policing could replace government. This is a debate. This is an area of extreme debate. So there are four factors that distinguish private police from public police. So the focus is on loss instead of crime. So it's mostly a protection from theft. Private policing focuses on preventive measures. And some of you may be familiar with many years ago in the UK went to CCTV cameras throughout London, which has contributed to a significant drop in crime. And it also makes crime fighting much easier. So anyway, and that was government doing that, not private policing. Anyway, so the other difference is private justice, private companies instilling consequences, which may keep matters involving law shaded from the public eye, and private property, concern for private property exclusively instead of both public and private. So this is an interesting area. I thought in all fairness, I should talk about it. So these are the different types: protective, intelligence, publicly contracted, and corporate policing. And you've seen some of the types of policing even overseas when it comes to military operations. Another area that's tangentially related to policing is corrections in PA. So I want to just talk generally on this hyperlink. So you might decide that you're not so much interested in policing in terms of, you know, being a police officer in a very traditional sense, but you might be interested in the correctional side. Now, it's not policing, but I thought that since I'm doing this kind of overview of careers in criminal justice, it would be prudent for me to mention corrections. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you guys the current jobs that are being that are available in corrections. And in general, you only need to have either an associate's, and actually generally a high school degree. But there are a bunch of careers here. Some of you may be interested in something tangentially related. But I wanted to show you specifically, some of you may have come to the United States with a degree in social work or counseling, and there are a bevy of corrections counselors positions that are open throughout the entire system. This is telling you where the prison is, the state prison that you can focus on. But what I wanted to focus on here, let's move to correction officer, is correction officers trainee. And this is statewide. So you would apply for this position, and it's you have to take the exam. It's a civil service exam as well, and you can see that they have specific positions at many of the state prisons. Now you're going to have to live closer to there. I'm just telling you right now. You're going to have to. The closest state prison you'd be looking at from Philadelphia would be in Montgomery County, and that would be at SCI Phoenix. And if you've been paying attention to the news, Bill Cosby was just released from SCI Phoenix. It's the newest prison. And you can see the pay isn't too bad for a person who generally just has a high school degree, because that's generally what is required. So I wanted to show you guys this. The other career that I want to mention is adult probation and parole and juvenile probation. So some of you may be not so much interested in policing as a career, but looking at the, again, generally careers in criminal justice writ large. And there's a great career in probation and parole. And what you minimally need for either of these positions is a bachelor's degree. You will be carrying a gun in adult probation and parole because you are acting, you do have some police-like duties that allow you to go into a probation woman's home without a warrant, and you're all armed. But you'll be dealing with the court system. So what happens in the United States is if you're convicted of a crime and the judge believes that jail time is not appropriate, the judge could give you probation. And then you might be on 3 years probation, and you're required to report to a probation officer every month or every couple of weeks. So the probation officer is making sure that you fulfill the requirements that the judge has given, maybe getting a job. It's always going to be drug and alcohol testing. So that would be the probation side. If, on the other hand, you go to court, you're convicted of a crime, and the judge gives you jail time, let's say the judge gives you a sentence of 11 and a half to 23 months, and you complete 8 months in, that's a county prison sentence, you complete 8 months in prison, but then you're released before you finish the time in prison, you're going to finish that time outside of the prison, and we call that parole. And guess what? You're going to have a parole officer. So the probation and parole officer, that person supervises people in probation and people in parole. If you're interested in the juvenile justice system, which is significantly focused on rehabilitation and not punishment, then you'll be the person that the juvenile is reporting to. You'll be intimately involved in that juvenile's life and their family. Okay, and that's it. I think I've covered some there. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. That was awesome. I've learned so much on this topic, and I don't know where to start with my questions, but thank you again for your time and for coming out. I think this is very, very helpful to our clients. I guess my first question to you, starting way back in the slides, I know you mentioned that a BA would probably be the best, bachelor's in criminal justice. So have you ever, I don't know, experienced like a student had like they obtain a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, but they have like they struggle to get a job in that
really,
field?
you know what,
or
there are so many jobs in the field. I think what the struggle might be is if the student came in with, say they came in and they wanted to work for Collegeville police. The problem with the county positions is those guys and gals, they retire from those positions. So there's not a lot available. So what happens is, let's say you go to Montgomery County Community College, you go to CCP, you get your associates, and you really want to work for Collegeville, you really want to work in Macomb County, it may be difficult to get a job there because people love their county police officer careers and they don't tend to leave, they just die. So that might be the struggle there. If you're willing to expand and be open to just about any county in Pennsylvania, it's easy. If you decide that you want to go with the metro police, like the Philadelphia police, they're all retired. So the larger the police force, the better chance you have a job. So my advice to a student is keep your options open. Yes, your dream job might be that job in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, where you graduated from high school. But you may have to, at least get the experience of being a police officer in a slightly different county until a position opens up. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. I guess I was hinting at, is it like a guaranteed solid deal if you get a bachelor's in criminal justice? But you answered it. Yeah, in PA, it's easily
I think it's
done.
easy. You just have to be willing to go. And I tell you where they're really working with the state police. And the state police will train you. You'll need Act 120 for the Pennsylvania State Police. So if you got your associates, you can apply immediately to the state police. You don't have to get the Act 120 because the Pennsylvania State Police do not require that. And that's one big advantage. And they're desperately looking for women, people of color, and especially people who are bilingual. They need bilingual speakers, specifically speakers who speak Spanish and English.
Thank you so much. And I guess that, yeah, I think that dovetails into my next question pretty well about financial assistance. And what is, I know you did in the beginning of the slides, you did have like the cost for to get an associate's and a bachelor's?
So it depends on which county you're in. So many of your
Okay.
clients, they may be in Philadelphia County. Some may be in Monaco, but if you are in Philadelphia County, it's less expensive to go to the community college in Philadelphia because you get the in-county tuition rate. But we have a lot of students who just like Montgomery County Community College. And so they come from Philadelphia and they pay the out of county tuition costs, which because it's a community college, it's not like on the Temple, which is over $900 a credit. It's far more affordable at the community college level. And in fact, I got to tell you, if I was going to go to medical school, honestly, I would take all the science courses at the community college. And then by the time, and in fact, I would graduate from high school with the whole intention of going to medical school and take all the science courses at the community college because they're a lot less expensive and they're all going to transfer to the full-year institution. And now you're on your way. So in answer to your question, I do not know what the per credit cost is for CCP. And I should know it for Monaco, but I actually forget. But I think I want to say it's $140 a credit, but don't quote me. I would have to look at it. I think I should know that, but I don't remember. But it's less expensive than Temple. So the path would be, here's the path. You would go to the community college of your choice for 2 years. You would graduate from the community college with your associates. That would then put you would then go transfer to say a Temple, or I say Temple, but Penn State, you go in as a junior. So you begin your last 2 years at the 4-year college as a junior. You're paying significantly less money because you spent the first 2 years at the community college. And we have what are called articulation agreements. So all community colleges tend to have articulation agreements. So what that means is if you go to Montgomery County Community College, we have an articulation agreement with Temple. Our students are automatically transferred there. There's no entrance exam, no ACT, no SAT, they don't take any of that. Temple accepts all of our credits in multiple degree programs. So I think that did not answer your question about the exact cost.
That's okay. Yeah, that's kind of a broad question. No, you answered it. Thank you so much. Also, you did mention, sorry for the
That's
background.
okay. Babies happen. It's a beautiful thing.
For the requirements for Philly, I know you mentioned there's comprehension exams,
Psychological exam,
psychological exams. Is there like ESL or English exams, particularly for our
That is a great question. There's the reading comprehension exam and there's an interview. So what's going to happen is if the English is not up to par, they're not going to do an interview. All of them have an interview, whether it's at the county level. So if you decided that you're going to be a police officer just at one of the counties outside of the major metropolitan areas, you'll have to do an interview. And you have to do a reading comprehension exam. And let me tell you, there are native speakers born and raised in the United States who don't do well on the exam because they don't read well. So, and they may do okay on the interview, but they flub on the reading. So for people who are from another country where English is a second language, they're not given any passes. They're going to have to be able to do well at the interview and do well with the reading comprehension exams.
Thank you so much. And one more last question, and then we can let you go. I'm thinking about this particular client who is interested in working in, as a police officer in Philadelphia. And he's part of the PPR program, which is the Survivors of Torture program, particularly clients who have been tortured by police officers overseas or government officials, and then they come and immigrate to the US and kind of have to like relearn the justice systems all over again. What is your advice to clients who have that poor experiences with police officers in their home country and then come to the US and want to, contribute and advocate to be a better police officer, or to be like a role model? What is
Yeah. Is this person a man or a woman?
a man?
And how old?
It's another case manager's client, but usually our clients are between like 30 and 40, like that, or 20.
Does he have a family? Does he have children?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only asking because first, he's going to have to pass the psychological exam for any of these. All have a psychological exam. All of the police officer positions have a psychological exam. Really, it would probably depend on the work he's done on healing before he even stepped a foot in the water. And I don't know, what his experience is, and I'm going to be really respectful of that. Because he could be in a position where he's triggered, and that's going to be a real concern, I would think. So I can't, because I don't have any experience with that, but I can just give you some things that he should be aware of going into the process. First of all, he could be an absolute asset in a police department, but he might, for his own healing, not go with a big Metro PD department. He might, for his own healing, want to go with Bedford County, Montgomery County, a smaller police force where he's not going to be on a treadmill of dealing with really kind of murders and mayhem. In the counties outside of Philadelphia and Allegheny, aka Pittsburgh, yeah, we've got robberies, we've got a murder here and there, but it's nothing like what you've been dealing with. So if he was my student at Montgomery County Community College and he shared with me his background and experience, that would be my advice. I would not advise him until he felt really healed from that experience to go whole hog into Philadelphia Police Department. Now, if he felt like he was really on a healing from that, go for it. But I ask about the family because one thing that I didn't talk about in the presentation is being a police officer is a very strange and stressful job. You go from 0 to 60. Most days it's the most mundane and not boring work. But then you get the one situation, and now all of a sudden we're asking this human being to turn on certain systems that deal with stress and to manage things in this very different way. And the only way they do that is having lots of practice. But how often are you confronted with a shooting? Not that often. How often are you confronted with an attempted carjacking? You're not standing there when it happens. So to be able, to turn on and off and then not bring whatever argument you have with your significant other into the workplace, police officers must do that. Because if they had an argument with their significant other, they stop you for a traffic ticket and they get upset with you, they're transferring their anger, right? So police officers have to be able to practice high levels of emotional intelligence. And if you're coming in with trauma that you haven't adequately dealt with, your ability to be able to practice emotional intelligence on a very consistent basis may be compromised. But we've all experienced sending an email that we're like, I was angry, I shouldn't have said that, now I have to apologize. Or even your significant other at home. You're tired, you come home, and most arguments happen when people come home. Why? Because they're tired, and as the research says, they haven't gone to the bathroom in their home. And so that's not the time to have a serious discussion. Basic needs have not been met. And you're going to argue with your lovely, wonderful significant other, and you're going to do this. I'm so sorry. I said that. I was in a bad mood. I should have taken it. This is when you're not practicing emotional intelligence. So imagine all three of us, not police officers, who've all had this argument I'm telling you about. And now we're asking police officers to practice emotional intelligence under more dangerous and strenuous circumstances than I just came home from work. Right? Does that make sense? I know that was a long answer, but I was trying to give that person a wide lens.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you answered that very well. Thank you again. That was really inspiring. Yeah, Bridget, do you have any questions or comments?
Sorry, I don't want my dog to bark in the background, but I
That's
thank
okay.
you so much that this has been so informative. And yeah, I think Sharihan answered most of my questions. So thank you again.
Okay. Sorry for the typos. I actually didn't, I was putting, I don't know why when I put it together, I didn't notice it. So